Welcome back. We are discussing about laser, that is light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, which is a proper light source that can be utilized for optical communication. Our modern telecommunication is based on this optical communication, and the source of light required for this optical communication is called laser, which is a particular type of source, and we know that what makes it special from any other type of light source. And those 4 points are that laser must have these 4 points, these 4 properties, 4 characteristics. What are those? The light beam emitted from laser must be highly coherent, highly monochromatic, highly directional, and highly intense. These are the 4 properties of the laser beam. Now, before we understand how to construct a laser, how to achieve those 4 properties, those 4 characteristics, let's understand what happens when light or photon interacts with matter or electrons. Matter is composed of atoms, and in atom, the basic building block will be their electrons. So our discussion is based on interaction of light with matter. And my suggestion, you keep on writing in your note. Okay. Now, when a photon interacts with an atom, then there are basically 3 mechanisms. Previously, it was assumed that there are 2 mechanisms by which light or photon interacts with matter. Then, according to Einstein, the 3rd mechanism was considered. So the first one we call as stimulated absorption. Stimulated absorption. Okay. First, we'll try to understand the actual thing. Then we'll make a model for that to understand it. So what is stimulated absorption? Let us consider 2 energy levels of a system. So we are considering we are considering an atomic system where there are 2 energy levels. Though there are other energy levels, for our understanding only, we are considering only 2 energy levels. One is the ground energy level, that is the minimum possible value of energy. And we know, as per quantum mechanics, the lowest value of energy cannot be 0. So it is the lowest value of energy. So that means if you consider an atom, the lowest value of an energy that the atom can possess. This is E1, say. And there is another energy level at a higher value, say E2. Okay. So we are considering these 2 energy levels. E2 is the higher energy level. That means here we are considering, of course, you understand from the figure, E2 is greater than E1. Okay. Now there is an atom here. Now when a photon comes, suppose there is a photon is coming with some energy h nu. Nu is the frequency of the wave. So the energy of the single photon is h nu. We know it. That is hc by lambda. If we try to understand it in terms of wavelength. Now, whenever this photon interacts with the atom, that means when it incident on that material, then the material, as I have said, material can do several things. When light interacts, it can do several things. Some portion of the light can be reflected back. Some portion can be transmitted to the medium. We call it as refraction. And rest is absorbed by the material. Here, we are considering that absorption. We are considering that absorption. So here, whenever that photon comes and incident on the matter absorbs these photons. Okay, actually there are lots of photons in incident and some of them are absorbed. Now, what happens? Because photon has some energy. So, when the atom absorbs that energy, then one atom gets excited. Actually, it's not the atom, it's an electron. An electron within an atom gets excited. For simplicity, I am saying the atom. So the atom gets excited. That means its energy is increased. Its energy is increased. That means if I say this is an atom, so within the if the material we are saying is solid material, and we know in the solid material atoms cannot leave their place. In liquid or gas, atoms can change their position, but in solid we know that atoms cannot move freely. So what they can do, they can vibrate. They can vibrate around their mean position like this. They can vibrate around their mean position. Okay. Now you observe this atom is vibrating with very small amplitude and velocity. Its frequency is small. Okay. Now, whenever it absorbs some energy, if you supply some amount of energy to this atom, then what will happen? It will vibrate with larger frequency because it has now more energy to vibrate. So it has more energy to vibrate. So it is vibrating with higher frequency. That's what happens. So whenever I am saying that an atom absorbs some amount of energy and excited and gets excited, what does that mean? That means it is vibrating with larger frequency. That's all. It doesn't mean that it has changed its position. No. Only the thing is that its vibration is now increased. Therefore, we are saying that this atom absorbed its photon and now its energy is increased. So its energy is increased from E1 to E2. In books, you will read that energy is increased from E1 to E2. Or it is now, the atom now goes from E1 energy to E2 energy. Doesn't mean physically it is moving. Physically it moves from energy E1 to E2. It means that it is excited. It has higher energy. That's all. So this type of process is an absorption process. Hopefully you understand that this atom absorbs the photon and that's why it is excited. And this atom doesn't absorb the photon and doesn't goes to the high energy level automatically. Spontaneously it doesn't go because all atoms try to prefer in the lowest possible energy level. That means E1 is the preferable energy state. But now this atom is excited to E2. Why? Because it is a stimulated process. You have stimulated it. You have supplied this energy. You have allowed this atom to take that energy. And once it takes that energy, it is excited. So it's not a normal process. It's not a spontaneous process. It is a triggered process. It's a stimulated process. You are stimulating that atom. That's why it is called stimulated process. And what type of process it is? It's an absorption process. The photon is absorbed and then the atom gets excited. So it is called stimulated absorption process. That means if I say there is an atom A in normal energy level, it absorbs a photon h nu and becomes excited. It becomes A star state. A star represents excited state. So that's what is called stimulated absorption. Now, we want to find out what is the rate of stimulated absorption. How many atoms per unit volume per second gets excited due to this stimulated absorption process. So I want the rate, how fast the atoms are excited. But again, there is a problem. If I say how fast the atoms are excited, that means if I want just the number per unit time, then this absorption process, the rate of absorption process will depend on the size of the material. If you take a small volume, naturally small number of atoms will be excited. If I have a larger volume, more number of atoms will be excited. Therefore, what we will do, will consider again per unit volume. That means now we'll define N1 is the number of atoms per unit volume in lower energy level E1 and N2 is the number of atoms per unit volume in the high energy level E2. So N1 and N2 are numbers per unit volume. Okay, N1 and N2 are the numbers per unit volume. Then we want the stimulated absorption rate. We want the stimulated absorption rate. Please write down. I'm dictating it. The stimulated absorption rate, that is the rate at which number of atoms per unit volume are excited from lower energy level E1 to higher energy level E2 is given by PAB proportional to N1 U nu. What are those I am defining? That means P absorption equal to, we require an equality constant. That equality constant is written as B12 N1 U nu, where N1 is the number of atoms per unit volume in E1. U nu is the energy density per unit spectral range. B12 Einstein's B coefficient Okay, so let's understand what I want. I want the rate. Rate means how fast the atoms from E1 are moving to E2. Here, by number I mean number per unit volume. That's why it is defined in that way. That means how fast the numbers per unit volume from E1 are moving to E2. That means how fast the atoms are excited to high energy levels. So that rate is called P absorption. Say, I'm giving a name. P absorption, I'm giving the name. P absorption depends on two quantities. N1, that means the number of atoms per unit volume. Hopefully you understand, if the number of atoms is more number of atoms can be excited. The proper probability will be more then. It also depends on the type of light which is incident on it. That means what type of light is incident on that atomic system on which the rate also depend on. But what by type of wave, what does it mean? We mean how energetic the light is. How energetic the light is, and how can I define the energy, whether the light beam is energetic or not? We'll just try to understand how what is the energy of that light. But again, energy is a vague thing. Rather, we need to say energy density. That means energy per unit volume. Remember Planck's law? When we discuss Planck's law, we have estimated that energy density. And how we have defined energy density? We have defined energy density within a frequency range nu to nu plus d nu as U nu d nu. We have defined it as U nu d nu. That is the energy density. This was energy density, u nu d nu. But what we require here? We require only u nu. That means energy density by d nu. And what is d nu? D nu is the spectral range. That means frequency nu to nu plus d nu. Then d nu is that range. Like if I say I want the marks of students having roll number between 10 to 15. So the range is 15 minus 10. That is d nu. So we are dividing this energy density by d nu. So how will you define it? We define it as energy density per unit d nu, that is per unit spectral range. So it depends. So this rate depends on this u nu, that is the energy density per unit spectral range. Why? Because if the photons are more energetic, then it is possible that more atoms can be excited. And so this pre-absorption depends on these two quantities. So it is proportional to these two quantities. That means if number is increased, absorption rate will be increased. If more energetic photon is incident, then absorption rate will be increased. Therefore, if I want to write the mathematical equality, then I require a proportionality constant. That proportionality constant is B12. So now if you are asked, that type of question is very familiar, that define Einstein B coefficient. Then what you will do? You will first define that absorption rate, just the definition we have written. Then you write down the mathematical form and you will say this B12, the proportionality constant, this proportionality constant is called Einstein B coefficient. This proportionality constant is called Einstein's B coefficient, which is actually tells us the probability of occurrence of this event. This B12 actually tells us the probability of this stimulated absorption to occur. Now, why it is written B12? Because the process is from 1 to 2. You understand? It is going from 1. This is the first and this is the second. So you are going from 1 to 2. That's why it is written in this way, to understand it. That B12 is associated with stimulated absorption process. And absorption process is always from lower to higher, 1 to 2. Okay. Next one is that now the atom is at excited state. So again, we are drawing it. This is our E2 energy level. This is our E1 energy level. Number of atoms, N1, N2. Now, the atom is excited by stimulated absorption method. Now the atom is here. But as I have mentioned earlier, the atom doesn't prefer to stay here. This is not its normal position to stay. No one of us, no one in this universe try to be in higher energetic level. We always prefer to be in lowest possible energy level. Therefore, this atom, which you have made to be excited, doesn't prefer to stay there. And within 10 to the power minus 8 seconds, think how small it is. How small it is. Within 10 to the power minus 8 seconds, it comes down. It comes down automatically, spontaneously. No one tells it that you should go to low energy level. No. It goes back to the low energy level spontaneously by itself. By itself, it comes down. It de-excites to the lower energy level. So whenever it comes from high energy to lower energy, that means this amount of energy, how much energy? E2 minus E1. This amount of energy must be given to the system, because it is now losing its energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. That means this amount of energy, which is equal to E2 minus E1, this amount of energy will be released in any other form. So whatever the amount of energy the atom was possessing here, now when it comes down, it de-excites, then that amount of energy, that is E2 minus E1, that amount of energy will be given to the system. Now the question is how the energy will be given. Energy generally converted as heat energy. That's why you observe, if you just heat a material, and if you heat it hard, you observe that the material gets heated. If you heat, if you kick a material hard, you will observe that material becomes heated. Why? Because whenever you are heating it, whenever you are heating it, HITTING, whenever you are heating that material, your kinetic energy is given to that material. Then how that energy is converted? Generally, whatever energy you have supplied it in terms of kinetic energy. That kinetic energy is converted into heat energy. And that's why the material gets heated. And this is the process. So actually, whenever you are heating the object, some atoms are excited to high energy level, but they do not prefer to stay there. They come down in the low energy level by releasing some amount of heat. Here also the same process occurs. But we do not like the heat energy. What is our aim? Our objective here is to construct a light source. That means we prefer that light energy will be given as light energy. That means the point is, whenever this atom is de-excited, then that energy will be released. Now some amount of energy will be released as heat energy, some amount of energy will be released as light energy. So again, a photon is released. Though please understand it, when I am saying that whenever our atom is de-excited, it releases an energy in the form of photon, and that's what is written in the book, doesn't mean there is always photon which is released. Then the preparation of any light bulb would be so easy, and it wouldn't be costly enough. But in most of the cases, energy is converted as heat energy, which we cannot utilize. But some cases, light or photon is generated, and we are considering that cases. So here this is an emission process. This is an emission process because a photon is emitted, so we call it an emission process. But how the photon is emitted? Because the atom is de-excited. Who tells the atom to be de-excited? No one. Atom does it automatically, spontaneously, because the atom doesn't prefer to stay in the high energy level. That's why it comes down to the low energy level spontaneously. So it is called spontaneous emission. So this type of process is called spontaneous emission process. That means you have an excited atom. Now the atom is de-excited, so it becomes a normal atom by releasing a photon. So this is the process now. Then what would be the spontaneous emission rate? How fast this spontaneous emission process occurs? So spontaneous emission rate, please note down, please write down. The spontaneous emission rate, that is the rate at which atoms in the high energy level E2, per unit volume, atoms in the high energy level E2 per unit volume de-excite means goes to the lower energy level. De-excite to the lower energy level E1, is given by what I said, the spontaneous emission rate, that is the rate at which atoms in the high energy level E2 per unit volume d excite to low energy level E1 is given by PSP proportional to N2. You observe it depends only on N2. More number of atoms, more will be the probability. It doesn't depend on anything else because it is not a stimulated process. You are not stimulating it. It does it automatically. So if number of atoms is large, then for a probability of occurrence will be large. It is given by this, or PSP equals to, we require a proportionality constant. That proportionality constant is called Einstein A coefficient, and we are writing it as A21 because the direction of the process is from 2 to 1. 2 to 1 is going, so it is A21. That's how we write, where N2 is the number of atoms per unit volume in E2, A21 Einstein A coefficient. This is called Einstein A coefficient. So if you are asked define Einstein A coefficient, again first you define what is spontaneous emission rate, then write down the mathematical form that P spontaneous proportional to number N2. Therefore, P spontaneous equals to A21 in N2. That proportionality constant is called Einstein A coefficient. It is a measure of the probability of occurrence of spontaneous emission. So please note it down that Einstein A coefficient is a measure of probability of occurrence of spontaneous emission process. That means, what is the probability of occurrence of this spontaneous emission process is given by this Einstein's A coefficient. Okay, that was the two things initially thought of. Now Einstein gave the third one. The third process is called, okay, before that, so previously it was thought that if we have two energy levels, E1 and E2, having number of atoms per unit volume N1 and N2, and if an atom is somehow excited, so an atom is here in the excited mode, you have excited that atom. Now, spontaneous emission will occur, no problem. But apart from spontaneous emission, as per Einstein, other process is also occurring. What is the other process? If you now supply a photon, to this excited atom, think of that previously in case of the first one, absorption process, the atom was in the lower energy level and you have supplied the photon so that the photon is absorbed. Here the atom is at the high energy level. Still you are supplying a photon. Now whenever this photon is given, then this atom again de-excites. It comes to the low energy level. So what Einstein suggested, whenever an atom is in the higher excited state, that means say the atom is in the high energy level E2. Okay, it can come down to the low energy level automatically, spontaneously, because it doesn't prefer to stay there. But still, suppose we are supplying some energy to that atom. So though the atom can come down automatically, spontaneously, it can de-excite automatically by itself. Still, suppose we are supplying some energy to it. We are supplying some photon to it. And whenever we are supplying some photon, it is observed that this atom now comes down. So this atom now comes down by emitting another photon. Okay, let's understand it in a different way. Whenever we are saying spontaneous emission. That means there is an atom in the high energy level. There is an atom in the high energy level. It doesn't prefer to stay in the high energy level. So by itself, it comes down to the low energy level. That means it de-excites. It has some, say, energy 5 electron volt, but it always prefer to stay in 1 electron volt. So it releases 4 electron volt and comes to the low energy level of 1 electron volt automatically. And when it comes, it releases a photon of energy h nu. What is that h nu? You understand one thing. This h nu must be equals to E2 minus E1 because that is the amount of energy released by the atom. As I have given the example that an atom was at low energy level 1 electron volt. Now it goes to high energy level, say 5 electron volt. So it will not stay in 5 electron volt. It comes down to 1 electron volt by releasing 5 minus 1 electron volt, that is 4 electron volt of energy. That means this h nu must be 4 electron volt. So whatever amount of energy released by the atom, that is the energy of the photon. So the emitted photon has the same energy. So that must be same. And that is also true for stimulated absorption. When I was saying that an atom of energy h nu is supplied and whenever a photon of energy h nu is supplied, an atom here, this atom absorbs that energy and goes to the high energy level, then one thing you must understand that this E2 minus E1 must be equal to h nu. Otherwise, the atom cannot be excited. Suppose you are using a lift. You want to go from ground floor to 4th floor, and you are entering within the lift and press the button 4. Whenever you are pressing the button 4, then automatically it is calculated that some electrical energy is required to move you from ground floor to 4th floor. If that energy is less than the energy required to move you to the 4th floor, will you reach 4th floor? No. Same thing happens here. If the supplied energy, instead of the electrical energy, here is the light energy, H2. If this light energy is less than E2 minus E1, will it excite an atom? No. The atom cannot be moved from E1 to E2 energy level. So minimum energy should be E2 minus E1. So H nu may have higher energy, no problem. H nu must have at least E2 minus E1 amount of energy. Like in your MAR, you require at least 25 marks. Otherwise, you will get backlog. You will not be promoted. Your whole year will be lost. So for precaution, what we can do? Instead of supplying just E2 minus E1 energy as H nu, we will supply more amount of energy. We will supply an energy which is more than E2 minus E1 to be in the safe side. Just like I have said you, to get more amount of marks, get at least 50 marks for MAR. Same reason here. So here also, this gap E2 minus E1, should be covered. That means H nu should be greater or equal to E2 minus E1. Similarly here, when energy is released in the form of H nu, this H nu is equal to E2 minus E1. This H nu must be equal to E2 minus E1. It's not possible to greater than or less than. Okay. Now the point is you observe a photon is emitted. A photon is emitted. That means light is emitted. This is the process. This is the process by which any light bulb operates. By some way, generally, suppose you have an incandescent bulb. You supply some electrical energy instead of light energy, like we are doing here. We are supplying some electrical energy. That electrical energy is absorbed by the atom, and some atoms will be excited to high energy level, but they do not prefer to stay there. So they will come down spontaneously to the low energy level. Spontaneous emission occurs. And we know by whenever spontaneous emission occurs, some photons are released. For each atom, there will be a photon released. So if we have 10 to the power 22 atoms released, 10 to the power 22 atoms de-excite, that means 10 to the power 22 atoms come from E2 to E1, then 10 to the power 22 number of photons are released. So you get a huge amount of light. Now the point is, in spontaneous emission, whatever photons are emitted, they can go in any arbitrary direction. That means, suppose 5 photons are emitted, each photon can go in arbitrary direction. There is no guidance for them. They can move to any arbitrary direction. So they are not directional at all. And that's why if you place a light bulb at any place in this in your room, the whole room will be illuminated, because if the billions of photons are released in 1 second, the billions of photons are going in arbitrary direction, so that the whole room will be illuminated. So this is the spontaneous emission method by which our normal light bulbs are operated on. Now, that is not desirable in our case. We want a particular type of light source where the photons will go in a particular direction. Highly directional thing we require. That is not achieved here. By spontaneous emission method, that is not achieved. Apart from that, the whatever photons are emitted by spontaneous emission method, not only they are going in same direction, they are going in arbitrary direction. There is no phase matching condition among them. That means they have different phase difference between them. They have different phase difference among all these atoms, all these photons. They have different phase differences, and that phase differences are not constant with time. That means the condition of coherence is not maintained. The condition of coherence, what is condition of coherence? That either there is no phase difference. If there is a phase difference, the phase difference remains constant. That is not true here. So whatever photons are released, suppose 2 photons are released, that either these two, first of all, this between these 2 photons, there is a phase difference, and that phase difference doesn't remain constant with time. It will change. So the condition of coherence will not be maintained. And monochromicity is not also maintained. I'm not going into detail of that. So just understand at least 2 reasons. We understand that coherence is not maintained, directionality is not maintained. Therefore, we cannot use spontaneous emission method for generating or for manufacturing a proper light source for optical communication. Now the third process. What is the third process? That there was a energetic atom. So this is an atom which is at high energy level E2. Now you are supplying a photon to it. You are supplying a photon to this energetic atom. And as if this photon is acting like a messenger. It's a messenger from you. Suppose, I'm just an example to understand it. It's just a messenger. Think of a messenger. It goes to that atom and tells the atom that you should de-excite now. It is giving the message to the atom that the atom should be de-excited right now. And the atom goes to the low energy level. And when it goes to the low energy level, it releases energy. What is the amount of energy it will release? Again, it will release the energy E2 minus E1, which is equals to H2. Then you have 2 photons, one the initial photon and the final photon. The final photon means the photon which is released as the atom comes from E2 to E1. So now you have 2 photons. Now one thing, can you utilize any type of photon for your messenger? As your messenger, can you use any type of photon, any frequency, any wavelength? No. You can choose only those photons which maintain this condition. E2 minus E1 equals to H2. So only those photons which have this amount of energy, E2 minus E1, they can be used as your messenger. And when it gives sends that message to the atom, and atom is de-excited by releasing another photon, we have now 2 photons, one the initial photon and the emitted photon. So it is again an emission process. It is again a emission process. But this emission process doesn't occur automatically. It doesn't occur spontaneously. You are stimulating it. You are supplying a photon from outside as your messenger to stimulate that atom. As if the atom was relaxing there, now you are stimulating the atom. You are giving it, no, your time is over, go to the low energy level. You are sending that message. So you are stimulating that atom. So it is also a stimulated process. It is a stimulated emission process. We have one stimulated process. We have the stimulated absorption process where you are supplying a photon to stimulate an atom to go from low energy level to high energy level. So it's an absorption process, stimulated absorption process. Now again, you are using a photon to stimulate an atom to go from higher to lower. So the emission occurs. That's why it is a stimulated emission process. That means now you have an excited atom. You are supplying a photon to it so that the atom is de-excited. So it becomes normal atom and it releases another photon. So you have now two photons. So you have started with one photon, now you have two photons. Now, what is the speciality? Speciality of this emission process is that whatever photons are emitted, so suppose this photon is emitted now, and this was the original photon. The newly generated photon, newly emitted photon will follow the initial photon. That means whatever be the frequency of the initial photon, that will be the frequency of the emitted photon. Whatever be the phase of the initial photon, that will be the phase of the emitted photon. What will be the direction of the emitted photon, initial photon, that will be the direction of the emitted photon. That means the initial and emitted photon must have same frequency, that means coherence, same phase, same frequency means monochromatic, same phase, that means coherence. They are moving the same direction, highly directional, and they have same state of polarization. There is another condition. That condition is also maintained. That means the emitted photon just resemble the initial photon or stimulating photon. Whatever be the stimulating photon, the emitted photon will be same. The same frequency, same phase, same direction. Therefore, we want this process to be followed for our type of source. That's why we utilize this stimulated emission process. That's why the laser acronym is now, think of the laser acronym. What is laser? Laser is light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So we are utilizing this process, stimulated emission of radiation. By stimulated emission, we are getting some photon, we are getting some radiation. So it is stimulated emission of radiation. This process is utilized and we will utilize this process. So again, we require stimulated emission rate. So please write down the stimulated emission rate, that is number of atoms per unit volume, number of atoms per unit volume in high energy level E2 gets de-excited to lower energy level E1, gets de-excited to lower energy level E1 per unit time, because I have not said rate, that's why I have to mention it at the end. Per unit time is given by PST, ST for stimulated, is given by PST proportional to N2 U nu. Is proportional to N2 U nu. You observe, in case of stimulated absorption process, the rate depends on number and energy density. Here also, it depends on number and energy density. And which number? Since the atom is at high energy level, we will use the number N2. Therefore, PST equals to a constant. Now the Einstein B coefficient again. where N2 is the number of atoms per unit volume in high energy level, U is the energy density per unit spectral length, you have already written, and B21 is the Einstein B coefficient. So you observe we have three Einstein's coefficient. One Einstein A coefficient, A21, because the process is from 2 to 1. Then Einstein B coefficient. There are two Einstein B coefficient. One B21, which is from 2 to 1, and another Einstein's B12 coefficient, which is from 1 to 2 process. Okay, so these are the three processes. These are our three processes. Now we'll try to understand it in a different way. We'll think of a model, and again, model is just a oversimplification of reality, so it's not the actual case. So you have a say very tall building. I'm using the same type of example so that it is helpful for you to remember. So there is a tall building having several number of floors. Say there are 20 floors in it. There are 20 floors in it, and there is a lift in this building, but that lift is restricted to the owner of the building only. That means the flat owners cannot use that lift. So though there is a lift, the lift cannot be utilized. Only by the building owner can use it. So under that situation, if you are asked to buy some particular flats in some floors, then as we have mentioned earlier in other cases, that you always prefer to stay in the lower floors. That means you will buy the flats which are in the lower floors. Suppose these are the floors. So up to say ground, first, second, third floors, people are residing. Okay, so people are residing up to some floors, and above that third floor, the other floors, all these other floors are completely empty. Okay, from that we can define what is conduction band, valence band, and define it. So this is the situation. So flat owners are living in these floors, Okay. Now one fine morning, the building owner calls for a meeting, and the meeting will be held at the topmost floor, at this floor. At this floor, a meeting will be held. Okay. Now, do you think anyone will go there automatically, spontaneously? Do you think any flat owner will go to attend that meeting in that topmost floor? You cannot utilize the lift. You cannot use the lift. So you have to go by your own energy from say ground floor or first floor to that 20th floor. So no one will agree to go to that floor to attend that meeting. Then what the building owner does, he allures the people. That means he said, say for example, that those who will attend that meeting will be given some special offers. Some rent will be reduced for them. Some special activities will be will be performed for them. Say telephone will be free for those people who are joining that meeting. That type of thing. So they are alluring the people. Now the people are excited. Now the people in the lower floors are excited. They are now excited to attend the meeting. So this is your stimulated absorption process. You are supplying some form of energy. Here, the form of energy is the say telephone bill will be permitted. There will not be any telephone bill for those people who are attending the meeting. So that is the kind of energy supplied in our stimulated absorption process. That kind of energy that is supplied is in the form of light energy. Light energy is supplied, and the atoms absorb that. Like these people absorb that that invitation and go to the 20th floor. Just like the atoms go to just like this atom, when it absorbs that invitation, absorb that energy, the atoms go to the high energy level. though it doesn't prefer to go there. It always prefers to stay in the lower energy level. So that is stimulated absorption process. Now once people are in the high energy level, people are in the topmost floor. So they are attending the meeting, but they do not prefer to stay there. So as soon as the meeting is over, all the people will try to go to their respective floor. Am I right? Because they do not prefer to stay in the 20th floor. There's nothing to stay there. Why do they stay there? So as soon as the meeting is over, all the people will come back to their respective floors. How they are coming back? Different people are taking different avenues, different paths. Some are taking, say, northbound staircase. Some are taking eastbound staircase. Some are coming down running to the stair. Some are going slowly. Some who are very much acrobatic, they take some ropes and go from 20th to their second floor, say, with the help of some ropes, etc. So my point is, different people are taking different paths. They are taking different times to come down to the ground floor or any other floor. That means if you are, say, at the ground floor, what you will observe? You will observe at different time, different people are coming. At different time, different people are coming. So from this point to that point, when people are coming, you are observing here that some comes after 15 minutes, some comes after 17 minutes, some come after 20 minutes, and so and so. And since they are coming at different time, you can say they have different phases. That means there's a phase difference among the people, and that phase difference doesn't remain constant. So it's completely coherent thing what is happening, and they are taking different directions to go from ground to from 20th to ground floor. Some are taking, as I said, eastbound stair, some are taking westbound stair, and so and so. So this completely haphazard process. This is spontaneous process. This is a spontaneous process. And when people come down, their energy is released. That potential energy they have. They have potential energy. This is the MGH. This is the potential energy. That potential energy is now released as kinetic energy, some heat energy. So that energy is released. Same process occurs in case of spontaneous emission. The atoms do not prefer to stay in the high energy level. They de-excite to the low energy level by emitting some energy. And this is the amount of energy that will be released, E2 minus E1. Now we are only considering the amount of energy which is released as light energy. That's why we have written H. And all these photons which are released by the spontaneous emission method, you understand, they are not coherent with each other. They are completely incoherent because they are not in phase with each other. They are not coming down at the same time. And they are taking different directions. So they are not directional at all. So now the flat owner, the building owner does, what he does is, he is a methodical person, so he doesn't like this haphazard method. What he says now, he can use the lift, so he comes down by the lift. So he is now at the ground floor. So he is at this ground floor now, and now he instructs one of the flat owner who is already in ground floor. So there is one flat owner in the ground floor. Now he asks that flat owner to go to the 20th floor with the help of the lift. He is now providing the lift. So he is now asking this flat owner to go to the top floor with the help of the lift and take all the other people present in that floor to utilize the lift and come down together. So now this flat owner goes to the 20th floor, take all the people present there within the lift, all the people present there within the lift, and with the help of the lift, they now come to the ground floor. So now when they reach the ground floor, what will you observe now? All people come down to the same direction, because this is the direction. This is the direction the lift moves. So they have now taken the same direction. They have taken the same direction. Now when they come down in the ground floor, what is the time lag among them? 0, because they are taking the same time, which is the time taken by the lift to go from the topmost floor to the ground floor. They are taking the same amount of time, so there is no time lag. That means they have same phase among them, highly coherent. So you understand that by this process, when the people are coming down, they are highly directional and they are highly coherent. That is what happens in stimulated emission process. When you are stimulating the atoms by supplying a particular amount of energy, Hν, then all those photons which are released must move in the same direction, must have the same phase, must have the same frequency and same state of polarization. So that means they are highly monochromatic, highly coherent, highly directional. So all 3 properties we can do by just adjusting the stimulated emission. That means if stimulated emission dominate over spontaneous emission process, because we require more people to come down by this method only, not by themselves. This is we do not prefer. We want more people to come down by stimulated process. So stimulated emission must dominate over spontaneous emission process. If it is, then we get laser source. Because then out of 4 conditions of laser, 3 conditions will be fulfilled: highly directional, highly monochromatic, and highly coherence. The last property which is required is highly intense, which will be discussed.